And you know that the censorship was specifically about the right.
No, I have to disagree with you.
Listen to what these world leaders had to say in response to J.D. Vance immediately after his scathing rebuke. Howdy, y'all. I'm Brylan. This is absolutely wild. Look at this. J.D. Vance slams German laws criminalizing online speech as 60 Minutes praises their civility. Now, here's the clip right here. These German prosecutors were on 60 Minutes, and 60 Minutes was actually, I mean, they might as well have been promoting this ideology. We know that 60 Minutes is the enemy of the people, and they got caught in that huge scam with Kamala Harris trying to make her look good, and even they couldn't do that. But listen to what these German prosecutors said on 60 Minutes. Hey, would you consider hitting that thumbs up button? You know, when you like this video, you're not agreeing with the insanity, but you're helping push this video out to more people to help spread the truth.
Is it a crime to insult somebody in public?
Yes, it is.
And it's a crime to insult them online as well?
Yes.
The fine could be even higher
if you insult someone in the internet.
Why?
Because in internet, it stays there. If we are talking here face to face, you insult me, I insult you, okay, finish. But if you're in the internet, if I insult you or a politician,
that sticks around forever.
Yeah.
If I insult you or a politician, do you think they care about insults between citizens? No, this is just the elites, the cabal, trying to stop citizens from speaking out against their authoritarian control. That's all this has to do with. But I also want you to notice how he completely contradicts himself there. He says,
if we are talking here face to face, you insult me, I insult you, okay, finish.
It isn't finished though, because you'll go to jail. J.D. Vance responded to this and said, insulting someone is not a crime, and criminalizing speech is going to put real strain on European-U.S. relations. This is Orwellian. And everyone in Europe and the U.S. must reject this lunacy. 100% agree. And I hope this does put a strain on European-U.S. relationships. Because for far too long, we've had, for the last 4 years under the Biden regime, the United States of America has been bowing to all other countries. You know, this whole one world system that's being created right before our very eyes. And the Biden regime, Kamala Harris, all in on it, all bowing to other countries, allowing them to completely take over and dictate what happens to Americans. In fact, never forget, under the Biden regime, the UK felt emboldened to say something like this. UK police commissioner threatened to extradite and jail US citizens over online posts. They literally said that we'll come after you if you post things that we don't like. If you're an American, they'll try to extradite you. And under the Biden regime, this was actually possible. It's nuts. And this is why it's so important that J.D. Vance rebuked world leaders straight to their faces at the Munich conference just last week. You know, he also rebuked them for their crackdown on not just free speech, but religious liberty. You know, you probably saw this, but I want you to listen to what he has to say to these world leaders and their crackdown on free speech and religious liberty.
And unfortunately, when I look at Europe today, it's sometimes not so clear what happened to some of the Cold War's winners. I look to Brussels, where EU commissars warn citizens that they intend to shut down social media during times of civil unrest the moment they spot what they've judged to be, quote, hateful content. Or to this very country, where police have carried out raids against citizens suspected of posting anti-feminist comments online as part of, quote, combating misogyny on the internet, a day of action.
Is that not wild? Is that not insane? All these countries around the world are cracking down on people's freedom of speech, all in the name of hate speech. Now, you might remember the left in America are notorious for screaming hate speech, misinformation. You're not allowed to say that. In fact, it was Kamala Harris that said free speech is earned. It's not a right you have.
He has lost his privileges, and it should be taken down. And the bottom line is that there has to be a responsibility that is placed on these social media sites to understand their power. They are directly speaking to millions and millions of people without any level of oversight or regulation. And that has to stop.
And that's why, once again, under the Biden regime, these social media platforms felt emboldened to go as far as banning Donald Trump. Well, J.D. Vance also rebuked these world leaders for cracking down on religious liberty.
The United Kingdom, where the backslide away from conscience rights has placed the basic liberties of religious Britons in particular in the crosshairs. A little over 2 years ago, the British government charged Adam Smith Connor, a 51-year-old physiotherapist and an Army veteran, with the heinous crime of standing 50 meters from an abortion clinic and silently praying for 3 minutes. Not obstructing anyone, not interacting with anyone, wow. Just silently praying on his own. After British law enforcement spotted him and demanded to know what he was praying for, Adam replied simply, it was on behalf of the unborn son he and his former girlfriend had aborted years before. Now, the officers were not moved. Adam was found guilty of breaking the government's new buffer zones law, which criminalizes silent prayer and other actions that could influence a person's decision within 200 meters of an abortion facility.
Wow.
He was sentenced to pay thousands of pounds in legal costs to the prosecution. Now, I wish I could say that this was a fluke, a one-off crazy example of a badly written law being enacted against a single person, but no. This last October, just a few months ago, the Scottish government began distributing letters to citizens whose houses lay within so-called safe access zones, warning them that even private prayer within their own homes may amount to breaking the law.
Wow.
Naturally, the government urged readers to report any fellow citizen suspected guilty of thought crime. In Britain and across Europe, free speech, I fear, is in retreat. And in the interest of comedy, my friends, but also in the interest of truth, I will admit that sometimes the loudest voices for censorship have come not from within Europe, but from within my own country, where the prior administration threatened and bullied social media companies to censor so-called misinformation. So I come here today not just with an observation, but with an offer. And just as the Biden administration seemed desperate to silence people for speaking their minds, so the Trump administration will do precisely the opposite, and I hope that we can work together on that.
Man, right on. You know, it takes a lot of guts to get up and say this to other world. Again, he's saying this directly to other world leaders' faces, calling them out on their totalitarian regimes. And you know, it's funny how all of this is starting. All these countries are using the same language, the same verbiage, the same excuses for cracking down on free speech, all in the middle of this one world cabal being formed under, you know, right during the Biden regime, when trying to get America sucked into all of this. And that's why the elites, the left, the Democrats are so furious and try to do everything they possibly could to stop Trump from winning the presidency because it threatened their control. And no, I'm not saying that Trump is the savior of the world, but it sure did mess up the cabal. Now, what J.D. Vance was saying there, listen, look at this. This was BBC. A praying man breached an abhorrent clinic's safe zone. Listen to what these world leaders had to say in response to J.D. Vance immediately after his scathing rebuke.
This is why I cannot just ignore what we heard before. I cannot not comment on the speech we heard by the US Vice President. We fight for your right to be against us. That is the motto, one of the mottos of the Bundeswehr, and it stands for our democracy. This democracy that was just called into question by the US Vice President, and not just the German democracy, but Europe as a whole. He spoke of the annulment of democracy, and if I understood him correctly, he compares the condition of Europe with the condition that prevails in some authoritarian regimes. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not acceptable.
The irony is so thick. Essentially, Europe doesn't have free speech anymore. Europe, you can't say that. In fact, even the mainstream media in America is, listen to how they're trying to form what Vance said here. Vance turns on European allies in blistering speech that downplayed threats. This is insane. Our own media in America, we know that they're the enemy of the people. We know this. Look at Reuters. In Munich, Vance accuses European politicians of censoring free speech. There's no accusations here. It's been clear that the entire world system has been cracking down on free speech. I have videos showing all this from the last year all over my channel. Not only that, but last year we saw how the European Union threatened Elon Musk for interviewing Trump. Gee, there's no conspiracy here. You even have mainstream media like Margaret Brennan, who has been slammed over her claim that free speech was weaponized to cause. Listen to Marco Rubio just absolutely destroy Margaret Brennan over her insane claims.
He was standing in a country where free speech was weaponized to conduct a genocide. And he met with the head of a political party that has far-right views and some historic ties to extreme groups. The context of that was changing the tone of it. And you know that the censorship was specifically about the right.
No, I have to disagree with you. Free speech was not used to conduct a genocide. The genocide was conducted by an authoritarian Nazi regime that happened to also be genocidal because they hated Jews and they hated minorities and they hated those that they had a list of people they hated, but primarily the Jews.
There you go.
There was no free speech in Nazi Germany. There was none. There was also no opposition in Nazi Germany. They were a sole and only party that governed that country. So that's not an accurate reflection of history.
Boom. Short and sweet. What's hilarious, though, is that now the UK is willing to renegotiate their online harm laws to avoid Trump tariffs. So even though their excuse is to protect the citizens from their own speech, it has nothing to do with trying to protect people. It has to do with lining their own pockets and gaining more control. Look at Psalm 37, verse 12 and 13 with me. These are such wonderful reminders that God is in control and that the wicked will not prosper in the way that they think they will. Verse 12, the wicked plots against the righteous and gnashes his teeth at him. But the Lord laughs at the wicked, for he sees that his day is coming. They will not get away with their wickedness, their depravity. And the Bible's clear that even though the wicked might prosper for a time here on earth, ultimately their destruction is near, whether that's here on earth or when they face God on Judgment Day. But hey, let me know your thoughts about all this in the comment section. I would love to hear from you. And if you wouldn't mind hitting that subscribe button, join this community. I would love to hear from you on a regular basis. And please hit that thumbs up button. You know, when you like this video, it'll get pushed out to more people and it would really help spread the truth. All right, I'll see you in the next video. Bye.